Okay, it works. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jack. I see familiar faces. Am I standing in front of the projector? No. Okay, hi, I'm Julie Suter. I'm the programs manager here at the Music District. I am also an owner of a small marketing business here in town, and I think that kind of speaks a little bit to what this event is going to be like today. So a lot of people I think might have been curious about, like, why would I come to a thing at the Music District? And Kevin Kirchner, where are you? Oh, there you are. I just followed your hand like, oh, he's over there. So I just want to give you a little recognition for putting this all together. I know that you don't like people to stare at you, but thanks to Kevin for putting this all together. I think this is, yeah, a little bit of creative outside the box thinking. So anybody that owns a small business understands that creativity is one of your best assets in making sure that everything works well and it gives you a competitive advantage. And if you happen, are there musicians in this audience? A few. Good. So if your business happens to be a band, you also understand the need for creativity. And so we're kind of letting those two worlds collide here at the Music District. One of the things that we try to focus on here is the business surrounding music as well as the art and the community of music. So this is one of the events that helps us shape that third leg to our stool, I guess. So thank you all for being here. What's going to happen is we're going to have two keynote speakers back to back in this room. You are welcome to go back there and get coffee. If you need little housekeeping details, there's restrooms right through the lobby. We'll help direct you there. So feel free to do what you need to do. And then after the keynote speeches, there are going to be breakout sessions kind of throughout the Music District campus. Most of them happen in this building. There's one that happens in the carriage house across the parking lot. But I will come up here and talk to you again and help you decide where you need to go next. So don't worry, just sit back and relax. I want to introduce our first speaker today. Eric Melin is visiting here. You're from Kansas City, correct? Came all the way from Kansas City, you guys, to come and talk to you today. He is, and both of our keynote speakers actually are social media experts and also people that understand music. So I'm super excited to have them here to share their knowledge in a lot of ways with everybody in the audience. So I'm going to let Eric do a little bit more talking about what he does. But without further ado, Eric Melin.
Thanks, guys. So how many people were here last year for the social media conference? Quite a few, about half. That's awesome. All right. So you guys know a little bit about me at this point. We're going to delve more into the social media side of things with this keynote. I am doing a workshop later, which will be more on the creativity and air guitar side of things a little bit later. So, but this presentation is mainly about something that when I go and I talk to people at conferences, one of the big problems that they have is that they can't figure out if they're using social media for business, how to have a personal social media account and a professional social media account. And so if you guys are using hashtags today on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, FOCOCreate is the hashtag. If you're on your phone and I say something interesting or I say something stupid, feel free to tag me at SceneStealerEric and use the hashtag. And then people that are watching all over the place can follow the conference as well, unless they're already watching on the live stream, which is cool. So I am a senior social media community manager at Callahan Creek, which is an ad agency in Lawrence, Kansas. And my job essentially is to be the voice of many of our clients' brands online. So in addition to the person that's posting the stuff on all the social media platforms, I'm also the voice of the company, right? So I'm the one that's speaking on behalf of the company. I'm talking directly to the customers, one-on-one conversations, but also making sure that everything that I say is in the voice of the company and is authentic to what people expect when they come to that specific platform. But again, this talk is more about using social media in your personal and professional life, because a lot of people want to separate the two, and they'll say, I have a Twitter account that I use for business, I have a Facebook account that I use for personal, or maybe I have two Twitter accounts, one for business and one for personal, where I talk about sports and politics and stuff like that. And I'm going to take you through my journey when I started in social media in 2008, right when Twitter was kind of breaking, and how I just kind of figured out a program all by myself until I finally came up with something that really worked for me. So I'm going to talk about how you can build your personal and professional brand today. So this is called Melding Your Personal and Professional Online Brand, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Embrace Air Guitar. And you'll find out more about why I'm talking about that a little bit later in here. But I had a very, very strange personal journey to getting to the point where I am employable at a major ad agency as a social media manager. It's not a route that most people would have taken. So first we're going to talk about the idea that you already have a personal brand, right? Maybe before you were even aware of it. Maybe you're not aware of it now. But just because of social media profiles and Google, you are out there on the world. And if people want to find out anything about you, they can just look you up, right? Or they can find you tagged in somebody else's post. So it's really important to make sure that your brand is ahead of the game and know what you're doing before you start posting. So this poor girl, Sella, she has a great bio. She loves all her bitches, ain't got no main. I don't know what any of that stuff means, actually. I can't fathom to guess whether that's a spelling error or what. But Sella's brand is not strong, okay? We can say that it's not strong. And it actually lost her a job. So she complained about getting the job. Ooh, I start this whatever job tomorrow. And her boss said, no, you don't. You're fired. Good luck with your life. So it's really important to understand how to have a personal brand and a professional brand at the same time, because even when you think you're complaining and nobody's listening, your boss might be listening. And so the first part of this, we're going to actually talk about not just what not to do on social media, but also how being on social media will get you the jobs you want and can get you better opportunities. Not like Sella. I got fired over Twitter. A Texas teenager got fired before starting her job. That's how I found out about this. This wasn't just some random thing. It kind of made the news a couple years ago. Employers use social media too, kids. So we're going to talk about that. And these are some old stats, actually, a couple years old. 93%, you can only imagine that the numbers are higher now, of hiring managers will review your profile before you get a job offer. And I know there's some people out there that, like, when you're searching for a new job, you go clean everything up, right, and make sure everything's good, and then you kind of let it slack for a while you're on the job. 1 out of 3 companies rejected candidates based on something found in their social media profiles. So now not only do we know everyone's watching, but we know that 1/3 of those people are actually rejecting candidates for that reason. When people get hired at Callahan Creek, I'm not the one that hires them, but I'm the one that manages all our social media profiles. So I immediately look them up in case our hiring manager didn't, to make sure that there's nothing out there that we need to get a hold of real quick, you know what I mean, before they start working there. This is an even better stat. 92% of companies use social media for recruitment, right? LinkedIn especially, 26% through Facebook. I wouldn't have thought that. And then 14% through Twitter. So now we know that not only are they listening, but they're actually looking for good people, okay? So if you have a personal brand, these are some of the things that are going to help you before you even get hired at a job, right? You're building credibility with a target audience. You're showcasing a specialty, right? This is really important. Differentiating yourself from the competition. These are the things we're going to talk about. Refining and developing your focus, and mainly having a personal online brand forces you to be consistent and reliable, which is one thing that a lot of people struggle with, right? They'll put 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 social media profiles together, and then gradually a couple of those will fall apart and nobody's posting on them anymore, and then they just, disappear. But the thing is they don't really disappear. Somebody can look you up at any point and figure it out. So if you're being consistent and reliable and you're using your social media profiles strategically, then you can actually do better and get better jobs. So this is the one thing that I think people don't understand the most, and this is really, really important. A strong professional network gives you a leg up. So increasingly, job hunters are tapping into social networks, connecting with peers, and in this sentence, it says that people who have active social media profiles, who network in real life and online, are going to find out about jobs that aren't even publicly posted yet. So think about that for a second. All those other reasons meant that you had a leg up on other people who aren't doing this right. But now, if you think about it, you're going to find out about the jobs before they are. So that's really, really important. And I can say that the reason that I got the great job that I have now that I love is because of all the social networking and the online and meeting people in real life. And then I was basically just kind of waiting for one job at one agency to appear. And when it appeared, I knew about it before they even were hiring. And I was one of the first people to get in there. So it really made a difference for me as well. So it's important to tell your own story. We don't want Google doing this for us. Google and Facebook pretty much control everything on the web right now, and we don't want them to control us. We can control how the universe sees us online if we get all of our eggs in the same basket and all of our ducks in a row. And so owning that info and shaping it so it's actually beneficial to you instead of just, something that's lying out there in wait to punish you. I mean, if our president understood this, that would be a really great thing for him because he probably wouldn't be dealing with an appeal from the Supreme Court right? Because he has this travel ban that he's trying to get passed, but he called it a Muslim ban on Twitter and in interviews all the time. And that's the thing that the courts are rejecting, is what he said outside of what would be considered to be professional. So I think he could really learn from this one as well. So, and what I'm saying about owning your brand is that you can't start soon enough. There might be somebody out there already who has yourname.com. So this is Eric Melin. And Eric Melin has ericmelin.com. And he has not updated his website since 2008 or whatever this is. I mean, this is a horrible, horrible website. And I didn't even think about doing it until years after. And when I discovered this guy, I was like, oh my God, really? So Eric beat me to the punch. And that's really him, or at least it was 7 years ago. I'm not sure what a worker tier is, but apparently he's a worker tier. And his website is so updated that he's got dead JPEGs right there from, what was that? Yeah, I can't tell. We'll talk more about Eric later. But what I'm saying is, I can't stress to you enough how important it is to get on top of this right now. Okay, Jeff Bezos has this quote, "Your personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room." And that's true. It's not just, online or what people say about you online. If you think about it, it's what people say about you when you leave the room. It's that last thing that they take with them. And so if you are your brand, if your brand goes with you everywhere you go in real life and online, then your brand should reflect facets of your personality, not just job-oriented stuff. Nobody wants to follow a guy who posts about one thing all the time, has no personality, right? If you're just reposting other people's stuff, nobody wants to follow that either. If everything you do is just a retweet or a repost of somebody else. So actually what I'm going to talk about today is that putting your personality into your professional brand can help. It'll help you differentiate yourself, it'll help you stick out, and it'll help people want to get to know you and want to think that the things that you're saying are interesting or you have some sort of expertise. And so being genuine is really, really important. And I know that's a cliche. And every social media presentation you've ever seen, they're always like, be genuine, be authentic. It's actually true. And there was a stat that just came out recently, actually, that I showed to one of my clients that talked about, you guys know how Wendy's got a lot of press for being really smart-assed on Twitter, and they have this really funny girl who runs their account who has been given the authority by Wendy's to be a bit of a smartass, and they got all this great publicity, and that's really, really great. But there was a study that just came out last month that talked about the reasons that people like brands on social media and the way that they want brands to behave. Number one was authenticity. Number two was being helpful. Number 3 was being funny. And all the way down at like 6 or 7 was being snarky. So it got them a lot of press, and it was amazing. But does anyone go to Wendy's now because they have a snarky social media profile, right? If they're actually helpful and authentic and you want to follow them because you believe in their values as a brand, that might mean more to you than just somebody being a smartass. That said, being a smartass at the right time is a really good thing, you know? So just don't just be that. But unless that's you, right? If you're a comedian, being a smartass is your brand. So in that case, I would say be smartass, but always be genuine. We'll talk more about this. It's different for everybody. That's the crazy thing. So this is one of the guys who I saw really early on. Has anyone seen Jason Falls speak? He's a social media, yeah. So he, right when I was first starting in like 2008, 2009, he had a book called No Bullshit Social Media, which was really important because it's like, oh, okay, that already just by cursing in your title, I'm kind of, you know, thinking I want to know more. But Jason is a really smart guy, and he speaks a lot. He's the SVP at Go Elastic. He's been doing digital marketing forever. But look at his profile. The very last thing on there says, I like bourbon. And he's from Louisville, right? So somebody with hundreds of thousands of followers is probably going to be considered an influencer. And guess what happens to Jason Falls now all the time? Because he's a social media guru and because he deigned to give himself a personality on Twitter and actually say what one of his interests was. Anybody guess what gets sent to Jason Falls all the time? All the time. And he's like, he gets interviews now, like people will talk to him about bourbon. They want to know, oh, what's Jason Falls drinking right now? And all he did was say, I like bourbon. Well, I mean, you know, he has a great social media profile. He wrote a book. But the people that are well-rounded and have hobbies as well as professional goals are the ones that are going to be more interesting to follow. And so knowing that, these are the things that I really think people don't understand are the benefits from being able to do this correctly. People understand, the people who are hiring you understand that you're intelligent, media savvy, and that you understand business communication best practices, right? A lot of people think that you have to be real, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I can't even come up with the word. Not like corporate, right? A lot of times people think that your business profile has to be corporate. And I'm here to say that that's not actually the case. And if you can do this right, it shows you can balance all of these different things. So your personal brand can morph and change over time. That's personal and professional development. And so this is just a visual kind of thing of the last 15 years of my life and how I got from being a drummer in a band that toured in a van all over the country and put out records. And we would say to ourselves, like we would actually go to the shows and we would see other bands that we didn't like their music, and we would be friendly to them and nice to them, but we wouldn't necessarily network. We felt that if we weren't genuine to the band and to the clubs and all that kind of thing, that or if we weren't genuine, that we would be selling out somehow. And so I had zero idea what marketing was. And so I'll just show you this first slide. So this was us 15 years ago, and that video was shot on the steps of the Los Angeles courthouse, which is kind of hilarious. But that's me on the drums, and we had all these kids who would come to our shows, and they just loved our band, and they were really amazing. And this is pre-social media. This is like 98, 99, 2000. And we put together a website where we would encourage people who saw us at the shows to share photos and share things that they made or that they would bring to shows on the page, and then we would share them back. And the funny thing is I didn't even know it, but back in 2000, whatever, we were doing user-generated content. That's like my entire job now, is I take photos of other people's dogs eating our treats, and I share them back to the community, and I say, this is great, look at this adorable dog. And then the community says, oh, we love this dog, and we love these treats, right? And that's exactly the same thing that Ultimate Bake Book was doing, my band, back in the day. When kids would bring us like food, they would bring us food and cookies to shows, and they would custom make t-shirts and stuff. And so we would take photos with them, but then they wanted to share those photos. And this is before Facebook, right? So you couldn't really share that stuff with the world. So we would say, email them to us, and we'll put them on our website. And we had a rotating photo gallery of all of our fans. And we would just update it every week. And it wasn't about us. The website was about them. So I was kind of doing this, but I didn't really know that I was doing it. And then when the band broke up and I went back to college to get a film degree, for some reason I started applying on game shows. And because I really like, performing and being in front of people. We went to Austin, Texas, and we tried out for this VH1 game show. And first we had to pass the trivia test with thousands of other people in the room, but then after that, it's all personality. And it's all branding. And we didn't really know what we were doing, but we knew that we had to have characters. And so we sold our characters like you would on any reality TV show. And we got on the World Series of Pop Culture.
We're sweet as pie. Smartasses from Kansas.
Smartasses from Kansas. And so we actually wrote that spot. They were like, okay, we have to do a fun spot. You can just wave to the camera. And we're like, no, we have an idea. Let's do something funny. And so we were branding ourselves, right? We knew that if we were going to get on this show and people were going to remember us. Well, the other thing to do would have been to be good. And we only made it onto 2 shows before we got eliminated. But hopefully people remembered us. But then I started a website and I started reviewing movies just on my own. And this was in the beginning of the YouTube boom. And so we were doing online YouTube reviews. We would review a movie and then I'd get publicity clips from the film from the studio. And then we'd put them in and we'd edit them. And then every now and then A-list celebrities would come into town and they would book me to interview them. Like right next to the guys from the local news, like the real media people. They had some dork who didn't know what he was doing. So this is what I did there for a while. I'm Eric from SceneStealers.com, and I'm sitting here. Can I take it again? Let's do it again. Promise.
No. I thought it was.
Okay.
No judgment.
No judgment. I actually left that in because I was like, he was really nice, and I was having a hard time, man. I'm like, Will Ferrell's sitting right next to me, and I can't even pronounce his name. So, I'm kind of learning, though. I'm learning how this whole thing works. And then once I did finally get a job at a social media monitoring company, and I started learning my way around the business, they were booking me to speak. And so they flew me to New York to speak at the Pivot Conference about this social media war room that we put together for, ironically, the Republican National Convention in Tampa. But it just kind of, everything just kind of worked. It just kept kind of going, and I kept kind of pushing it. And it will take you to really strange places. And so then I started doing movie reviews on TV, on legitimate TV, right? So they would book me every weekend, and I'd talk about whatever I saw that week and promote my website. But this is during the really awkward years because you can see I'm wearing a suit coat and a button-down shirt. But when they cut back to me, you'll see it again. I don't look like the guy who normally reviews movies on the morning show, right? Oh, maybe they won't. But I had long hair. I was growing my hair out. And that was because I was in the middle of another dream of mine and another media conquest that I was trying to do, which was to become an air guitar champion. And so I had this hair that didn't look like the guy who was supposed to be reviewing movies. So it is challenging to meld, but it will take you to some really strange places.
We end in Finland, home of the Air Guitar World Championships. This is Eric Melin, and he is absolutely shredding. And if you think this is really crazy, I once did an interview with one of these guys, a live interview about air guitar, and then we had him play live. He's not playing a guitar. What part of this do you need explained to you? He's just moving his hands. Nothing's actually happening here. We'll be back.
So Keith Olbermann mispronounced my name twice. He called me Mean Melin, Eric Mean Melin. And it's Melin, dude. It's Mean Melin. It rhymes. So I called him out on Twitter. Somebody sent me this video, and I was like, oh, sweet. So I added Keith Olbermann, and he apologized. Have you ever heard Keith Olbermann apologize for anything? He had to be a smartass, of course, and he said, my name is pronounced Keith. So But yeah, social media can really take you to some strange places. And so anyone who saw me last year saw this clip already. But essentially, if you're active on social media and you've done something stupid like become the air guitar world champion, like I did, then maybe BBC will call you on the way to work and tell you that a Cambridge psychologist has done a study that proves that playing air guitar improves musicianship and creativity. And maybe you'll be on the BBC Skyping in from work. And so that's what happened to me. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is you just gotta have to kind of build your personality along with your professional resume and just go with it and see where it takes you. And it will give you legitimacy and confidence where you least expect. So the bottom line for me is, this kind of angry stuff doesn't really work anymore, and that's why I've got the smiling photo, and that's the photo that's everywhere now. I'm not mean. I am mean Melin when I play air guitar. That's my character, but I'm not a mean person. And for the most part, people don't want to speak to a mean person online. So I've gone from that to that. And yes, I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and I did kiss Meredith Vieira full on the lips. So that was a weird moment. I was going for a cheek, but... But nobody wants to interact with a company stooge, right? Somebody with personality is more interesting online, and you can still have professional credibility. Now, when we follow something like Fast Company, right, a news outlet or something like that, an organization, we expect them to do a broadcast-only thing because essentially we've subscribed to their tweets or their Facebook feed or whatever because we want them to send the articles that we want into our news feed, right? So they can do that, but real people can't, and they shouldn't. People are not companies. You should actually have conversations with people, and you can curate and create original content, and yes, you should do that, but you should also reply to people and talk to people online. That's what it's all about. The people who have Twitter accounts who have them locked and private are kind of missing the entire point of social media. I mean, if you want to have just a closed system where you talk to 10 or 12 of your friends about who got the drunkest, then maybe having a protected Twitter account is okay. But it does kind of miss the point of actually having conversations with people. And so this is, you can see I have people here talking to me about technology, about movies, and again about social media there. And it's because the things that are in my bio lead people to believe that this is a person who can speak about these things with some level of non-ignorance, I guess. So now we're going to talk about what you guys can do. And this is the really weird part. This was really tough for me. So where do you start, you narcissist, right? Everybody makes fun of people all the time for selfies and taking photos and, oh, here's my food, right? I ate this amazing meal this morning. It's like, stop sharing your food with us. But it is a very narcissistic kind of behavior. But what I'm going to show you is a way to think around that so that it doesn't seem as narcissistic as it could be. There is a different way to do it. Unfortunately, the very first thing you're going to have to do is very narcissistic. If you have a Gmail account, make sure and log out of it, okay? Do not be signed into Google when you Google yourself, because the results that you're going to see are different from the results that anybody else who's logged in is going to see. So go ahead and log out, do a Google search in quotes, and find out where you stand. This was a couple years ago, actually, this last time I did this search. And you can see Eric, my enemy, my frenemy, he's up there, but I got the first 4 photos, right? And if we go down here, yeah, he's all the way down there. So I kind of killed him on the SEO, right? I'm kind of winning the Google yourself battle. He still owns ericmelin.com though, so. But yeah, that's a really important thing to do, to see how other people see you, okay? Next thing you need to do is try to get your name as a unique URL. And I'm not just talking about the website, right? I'm talking about on LinkedIn. You can get Eric Melin if you're first, which he was. And you can get Eric Melin on Twitter, which he also got, but he's not using it. Look at this. This is 2015 was the last time he tweeted. And it's a total like LinkedIn automated thing. I don't even know what he's talking about. The guy's got 218 followers. What is this? So anyway, getting your unique URL on social media profiles is really important if you can do it. If you have a really common name, it's probably too late. But if you have a unique name, or I thought I did, then you can get one. And if you don't, then create and make that the thing that you carry with you throughout all of your social media profile, right? Because you want to be the same person on Instagram that you are on Twitter, that you are on Facebook, that you are on LinkedIn. We're not about, oh, I just do my quilting over here and I do my music on this profile and I talk professional on this one. My suggestion to you is to meld them all together and become one person with lots of interests. And so you can see that all my stuff looks the same, right? And Scene Stealer Eric is my name on there and there, right, for Instagram and Twitter. And then even up here, I got Scene Stealer Eric as a unique URL, even though it's not my name, because everyone who's going to be searching for me is going to search in one of those two different ways. And so at least they'll be able to find me this way. And it's the same profile, right? And when I change my profile photo, it will change across all of them because I'm not going to have a different one for each one. There's arguments for and against that. I just think cohesiveness is better. And if people want to get in touch with you and they want to find you, they want to know this is the same person. So another thing you have to do right at the beginning is look at successful people in your field, okay? The people out there who are doing what you want to do. They already are on the right platforms and they already have their own strategies to get ahead on those platforms. And different industries and different verticals are going to have other platforms that are going to work for them. And so it's really important to just kind of look. This is Clout. Does anybody use Clout still? Or we know what it is, right? It's like it ranks your influence based on all of your social media profiles. So these are just some social media experts that I follow, and that's what they look like on Clout. And you know, if you were to go to any of them, the photos are essentially going to be the same throughout all of those. But looking at the people that are already doing what you want to be doing is a really good way to start. But this is really important. Just stick to what you can handle. Figure out the things that are going to help you, the platforms that are going to work for you, right? I think Twitter's going to work for this reason, or I think Facebook is going to work for this reason. Stick to those and just do those, okay? There's nothing worse than having 12 profiles and only 3 of them are active. So don't spread yourself too thin. Be strategic and do what I talked about earlier and be consistent. Keep posting. And if you're going to have a homepage, keep it current. This is Eric's page, a little bit spread out a little bit more to actually see his recent posts. So you can see that in 2011, he was at the philanthropist party and he posted some photos. And that's the last time we heard from Eric Melin on his website, ericmelin.com. So keep your website current. Now we're going to get into the really uncomfortable part, okay? Self-examination. So I found this chart that I really liked and helped me when I was trying to find my own way through how to blend these different schizophrenic parts of my personality. This is one that I really liked. I altered it a little bit, but it has your values, your strengths, and your why, right? And then the part in the middle, obviously, that's when you've hit the bullseye, is when you can do something that pertains to all of those 3s. So we'll just talk about values at first. These are examples of values. You have to kind of define yourself. What do you stand for? What are the things that are important to you? And some examples would be family, friends, hard work, positivity, community, passion, generosity, curiosity, fun, faith, leadership, and making a difference. Those are probably the most common values that people want to express online if they're using personal and professional, if you're using it for personal and professional reasons. So you have to think about how you can express those values. It's okay to make a list and have it sitting at your cubicle or to have it at your house somewhere so that you can remind yourself that, yes, these are the things. First, you pick what you believe in, and then you're finding ways to express that. Because you don't just want to keep saying over and over, I love generous people, or so you figure out ways to express that generosity. If there's a charity that you believe in, or that you donate to, or a cause, right, or something that you think is important, and you're giving up your time, that shows generosity. So it's all about expressing, showing, not telling what your values are. But I think this is kind of weird. So this third bubble. So the why, your purpose thing, I'm kind of throwing that in with the strengths and the goals. Because I think having goals is an easier way to express your why. For me, it's really hard to figure out my why. because that's just too much self-examination. So your strengths and goals. This is actually really easy. Think about the things that you're naturally good at. How can you help, inform, or entertain others? What unique qualities can you express, right? What are the things that only you know about or you think that only you care about and you're an expert at? And now if you think about how you could tie those into your personal and professional goals, you've kind of hit the bullseye on this one as well. So a lot of times people have a rough time coming up with that. But I think strengths and goals are really, really important. You don't want to play to something that isn't your strength, obviously. And you want to have goals, and we'll talk about it later, but you want to refine your profile to make sure that your profile looks like what you want your goals to be, because your goals might change. My goals change like every 2 or 3 years. I'm doing something different because I'm following another interest, right? So that's what I did, is I crossed out the why and I put in interests, because I have a ton of interests. And so that part is really, really easy for me. It's harder for me to be able to express my goals and my values than it is to talk about my interests all the time. So what are your interests? How can they reinforce your personality? The things that you've talked about are the other two bubbles. How will your interests resonate with your followers? It's really important to figure out who your audience is, right? What unique opinions can you offer on these interests? I don't have a unique opinion about everything, but I feel like I do have a little bit to offer on certain things. And so whenever I do have one that I don't think is a little bit too controversial or snarky, or maybe it's not fully formed, I will always share that with an article rather than just sharing the article, right? Do facets of your interests dovetail with your values, strengths? And that's the bullseye, right? If we can actually find that spot where all three of these things work together, then you're definitely in the zone. But a lot of people have a hard time figuring out how to do values, interests, strengths, and goals. And so this is actually something that it seems kind of simple and dumb, but take somebody out to lunch and ask them what are the first things that come to mind when people think about who you are, right? A lot of us aren't really good at defining the way that other people look at us, or maybe we're not comfortable thinking about that. And so if you just ask your friends, and this is important, they should be your friends. You don't want to ask some random guy on the street, what do you think of me? Because they know you well, right? And they might know some strengths that you haven't identified before, Like I have a friend in Denver who's now a principal of a school. And I've always thought that he has this great ability to take constructive criticism and move on. And he has like the biggest ego in the world, but it never it gets punctured all the time and he doesn't care. That's a great thing, to just take constructive criticism and move on with it all the time and not let it affect you or get you down or make you feel like less of a person, and to have that confidence to move forward. And so your friends may be able to tell you about that. They may be able to tell you something that you don't know already. Now we're going to get more technical, right, or more practical. Build a hub for your brand. Has anybody used any of these websites before? Yeah, raise your hand if you have. So about half. Cool. I have an About Me page and a WordPress blog and a Squarespace page now, and I use them for 3 different things. Ironically, the About Me page is what unites all of them because it's so simple and it's free to set up. Some of these are blogs. Some of them are like a resume, and the About Me thing is just a really quick thing that can kind of hold it all together for you. But I use each of them for different reasons. This is my About Me page. Again, it's that same damn photo, right? So nobody will be able to say that's not the guy. That's definitely the guy. And it says social media manager and public speaker in Lawrence, Kansas at the top, because that's kind of the thing that I want to be known for the most. As I look ahead, I see that I want to move up in the social media world and get better jobs and do more interesting things, and I want to keep public speaking. So both of those things are at the top. Yes, I'm an air guitar world champion, but that's not the number one thing, right? That's not, and where do I go with that? So this goes into all of this other stuff. That goes straight to my website where people can book me for speaking gigs. And then down here, I have all of my social media profiles that I keep up with. And I am not doing a good job keeping up with Tumblr or YouTube or Google+. Google Plus is kind of a graveyard right now. Is anyone using Google Plus? If you have a business with a location and you have a Google location, Google Plus is a good place to be, but other than that, it's kind of dried up. Tumblr was all air guitar stuff. I don't compete anymore. I'm retired, so I'm not really doing that so much anymore. And YouTube is where all my old movie reviews were. So if people want to see them, they can go there. But that part of my life of making original videos on YouTube for movie reviews is kind of over. So I'm kind of breaking my own rules right there. But the ones that I keep up with are the ones that are really important, and that are probably the first places that people are going to find me. This is my Squarespace page. This took me a weekend to set up. Everybody's heard about websites like Squarespace. It's amazing. The one thing I will say is before you go in and before you put your website together, have a ton of high definition photos ready. Because the great thing about Squarespace and Wix and sites like that is that you can build something that's going to work on the mobile phone, right? And so it's going to automatically adjust whatever's going on. So this looks like this on desktop, but on a mobile phone, it's sized completely differently, but all the information is still there and it looks great. But you need to have a lot of high def photos. So before you sign up for something like Squarespace or Wix, Weebly, make sure you're ready with graphics and photos and things like that. Because a website that's all text is really boring. But yeah, this literally took me a weekend. It was amazing. And then when you're doing your social media accounts, and this is kind of a duh, but it's something that people miss a lot. Make sure that your bio tells people on that social media profile exactly what to expect from you, right? So I just actually revised this recently because I wanted to take the band. I used to play in bands, and I don't really do that anymore. So I took the bands off. It was just taking up space in my profile that I didn't need. So I actually have this book me to speak right here, and then it goes right to my website. So I have a call to action in my bio. But then on LinkedIn, you can control the thing that goes right under your name. You can have one thing that goes right under your name, and then the rest of it will say, current, other places that you're working for, the places that I write for, and things like that. But you can choose the way that people know you when they go to that particular site. So the LinkedIn one is more professional, obviously. Don't try to be all things to all people. I saw this really good article called Why Jack of All Trades is the Worst Personal Brand. And as I was doing research about this, I actually saw people that called themselves Jack of All Trades. And it's like, you need to be different, right? You need to have unique opinions and you need to have unique expertise to be somebody that people A, want to follow, or B, want to hire. So if you just say you're good at everything, that doesn't really help. And I've been writing movie reviews now for 13 years, and I'm the president of the Kansas City Film Critics Circle. And one of the cool things is that I'm on Rotten Tomatoes, so I'm one of those critics that helps put together that awful percentage thing that I hate. It gives people the wrong idea about movies, but I do it anyway because there's links to my reviews, and I want people to see my reviews. So this is just a look at some of those reviews. And what I'm saying is don't be a jerk or be a contrarian just to be different, right? You have to be able to back up your opinions. So on the Hunger Games and on Spectre, you can see that my rotten score was very different from everybody else's positive score. But the great thing about being a film critic is that you actually have to write and defend your positions. You can't just put out 140 characters that say, Spectre sucks, James Bond's the worst, Daniel Craig, right? So I have to be able to back up my opinions. You can't just be a jerk and expect to get more. We were just talking about this today. I feel like, I probably shouldn't even say this, but I feel like Trump pulled out of the Paris thing just to be a jerk, just to show everybody that he could. Everybody told him not to. His advisors, the economic people told him not to do it, and he did it anyway. And he's just trolling us. It's crazy. But so I'm saying don't do that. Have an opinion, have a way to back it up, right? Because the other thing is, you're not the only person saying something different. So this is the tomato meter, and it turns out I agree with it 80% of the time. So I'm not some guy who oh, everyone likes this movie, I hate it, right? When it happens, it's really good for me, right? When I dislike a movie that everyone else likes, or vice versa, because I get way more hits on my website, and get into way more Twitter arguments, which is awesome, as long as they're constructive and it's about the movie and you're not taking pot shots. You don't have to have a professional headshot, but it wouldn't be a bad idea. The one that I have was actually shot by a professional photographer at work. So it's just me in a t-shirt. I'm just smiling. There's no crazy background or anything, but that's kind of the idea. Your face should get across what you want to get across to people the first time they see you, right? And so that's generally all you need to know. But getting a professional headshot wouldn't be a bad idea. And let it reflect your personality, right? But make sure it's recent and make sure it's recognizable. The moment I get a haircut, I will change my my profile, right? But most important than that, put your best foot forward. We'll just go through some of these actual profile photos. That guy is on LinkedIn with 2 beers. The only thing you can see in that photo is a horse's ass. The guy's not even in focus. And he's got sunglasses on. That's an actual LinkedIn profile. That's a person on LinkedIn. It's like the logo for their realty company, right? That's horrible. Heisenberg, well, okay, Breaking Bad was cool, but let's be honest, that doesn't tell me anything about you other than you like Breaking Bad. And these people that are just out of focus and you can't see them, that guy with the egg, this guy who doesn't know how to size photos correctly. And I love that this guy knows how to play the guitar, but I don't know who he is because all I can see is one half of his face. And he's wearing a hat. And then this person loves to travel. And if I knew who they were, I'd be better off, but they're this tiny in the background. So these are some things not to do on your profile. Post with purpose. This is really important. There's no wasted post, right? Even the one thing like, when you're having a bad day and you just want to post something, you've got to hold yourself back, right? Because everything you do is building your brand. And if you're cognizant of your values and your interests and your strengths, this will come naturally. And it kind of has come naturally over time for me, but I do have to constantly redefine it. And the politics thing is certainly part of that. But just know that everything that you post is public, right? We all know this about Snapchat now too, and everything else. There is no such thing as privacy on the internet. Even if you have a protected Twitter account, it can be hacked and people can. I don't know why they would want to hack your account, but everything is public now. So do not do anything online that would damage your personal or professional brand. And an example of posting with purpose, and this is kind of funny because this is Bernstein Rain is a huge ad agency in Kansas City, and they posted this funny thing, and I responded with, Dio, Motley Crue, wait, I know this, Slayer, I give up. Because I see a pentagram, and I see metal, and everyone thinks of me as the metal air guitar guy, right? And their response was incorrect, but the blessing here is that you're not really intern material, are you? Overqualified. So I got a nice response from an ad agency. And all I did was make a joke on their interns thing because I saw this pentagram, and the joke was authentic because that was the first thing I thought of. So it built my brand, and it built credibility, even though I was trying to be funny. This photo here was something that I reposted from Instagram of when this is a true story, I went to the Nelson Art Gallery in Kansas City, and I actually performed air guitar at an art show. And so I thought, well, that's really cool. I wasn't there to take a picture of it because I was performing, but somebody did, so I reposted that because that fits my brand as well. I want people to know that air guitar is more than someone just acting like an idiot in their basement, and that people actually hire me to do air guitar in like snooty art places as well. So, but even the retweets, right? Even the things that you do, when somebody says organic reach is dead, it makes me angry because I don't think it's true, which is another story. And then Kurt Vonnegut, who's like probably my philosophical double in every way, except that he writes all the good stuff and I just read it. But everything that you repost should fit your brand as well, right? When you're not creating original content, but you're curating it, make sure that it's within your brand. Don't retweet something that you think is interesting unless it's something that fits into what people expect from and the reason that they followed you. So, and the thing is everyone says, oh, I never know what people are going to want to hear. If you find something valuable, chances are somebody else is going to. And if your bio says what people can expect from you, then you can count on it because they're following you for the same reason, right? So they want to know what interests you. And then sharing your content and adding more value to it, right? So instead of just posting something, say something fun about it or give an opinion about it, and then people will start to see you as an authority on those subjects. And reciprocation is the best kind of conversation, right? Whenever you see something that you're interested in, especially something happening locally, always retweet it and help other people out, right? And so I have a pizza place in Lawrence that delivers to us, and we live way out in the country, and we're out of their delivery zone. But right when they showed up, the first week they were in business, I ordered a pizza from them, and they said they would deliver it, and they didn't know that we were outside of their delivery zone, and I tipped them huge, and they still come out. We're the only house I know of outside of their delivery zone that they keep coming out to, so I constantly call them out online and tell everybody how great they are, because it really makes me happy. And then, yeah, something about voting. So, and doing a poll every now and then, but just getting people involved and helping them out when they need help. If there's something exciting going on in town, then you want to share that, right? And you want to tell people, one of my favorite beers is back, and use the local hashtag so that everybody who's following that local hashtag can see it. Whenever there's anything going on that I think is really cool, I always try to reciprocate and retweet and help other people out. All right, here's the tricky part. What not to post about. There's exceptions to all of these, depending on your brand, depending on what you're trying to build up, okay? Sex, drugs, alcohol, guns. General rule, not a good thing, unless you work for a gun shop, or you are a gun lobbyist, or a gun hobbyist, and you can present that in a way that won't make it so political, right? Everybody's so angry. It's like a hair trigger, right? So it's really, those things are really tricky to post about, is what I'm saying. Bad grammar and poor spelling, I mean, that's just, right? We know that's bad. Complaining about your job, I mean, that's just the dumbest thing ever, but it happens. We had a girl who got hired at Callahan Creek, and I looked her up online, and she had this great blog where she made fun of the people she worked with at her old job because they were really stupid. And her articles were hilarious. It wasn't as good as David Sedaris, but it was really funny. She was a good humorist. And I immediately emailed her, and I'm like, you have to shut this down. Please don't do this when you work at Callahan Creek, you know? She's lucky that her last job didn't find out about it. But unless you're a humorist, complaining about your job, probably not a great idea. Posting when you're not supposed to be working. You guys know, unless you've specified it, that your location is almost always turned on your phone, right? You can go into certain platforms and you can say you cannot have my location, you can't post about it. But social media has kind of turned us into this weird surveillance state where everybody knows where we are all the time. So if you're not supposed to be working, you know, maybe just stay offline at that point. But definitely don't post that you're at the theme park when you're supposed to be home for a sick. Negativity about client, boss, coworker, that kind of goes in there. Company secrets. I know somebody who could learn a thing or two about that. No oversharing. You wouldn't think we'd have to say that. No oversharing. This is a big one for me. I think that on Facebook, there's a lot of people that I follow who overshare about all kinds of things. And it's nice to know, I guess, sometimes that that's out there. And if people need help, then certainly you can help them if you see somebody oversharing in that way. But as a general rule, it's a big turnoff for people to just be negative and share all your problems all the time. And so that's always been a rule for me. Now this last one, I've already broken it like 3 times just in this in this presentation. But the thing is that we're in a political situation now that I think is more than political. Like I think there's something bigger under threat. And so I made this decision last year at one point to just be like, you know, I'm going to break one of my rules. And I know that my job is okay with it. We're a creative community, and we do advertising and marketing and social media, and the people I work with all believe in certain things. We're in an arts community. We're right across from the Art Center in Lawrence. It's a community a lot like Fort Collins. And I think that it actually builds my brand to point out things or to try to be reasonable about some of the crazy things that are happening in our world right now. And so I broke that promise. And if I'm going to lose hardcore conservatives, or not even conservatives, Trumpers or whatever, that's fine. You know, I can deal with that. My personal and professional goals do not dovetail with those people. So if they're going to be turned off by what I'm posting, that's okay. The only thing I can do is be responsible about what I post. I'm not just going to be a jerk just to be a jerk, and I'm not just going to make fun of him just to make fun of him, right? I'm going to try not to. This is a really interesting thing because people kind of think of me as a rock and roll guy, right? And I write movie reviews, and I love craft beer. And the craft beer explosion has made it okay for people to post about drinking beer. But there is a chance that if you post about drinking beer all the time, people will think you're an alcoholic. And I don't want that. So I have this thing called Untapped. Does anybody do this on your phone, the Untapped app, where you can rate all the beers that you get? And it's great because when I'm in Fort Collins, I drink like 10 different beers, and I'm like, yeah. But my Untapped is not hooked up to my Twitter. It's not hooked up to my LinkedIn. It's public, and people can request to be my beer friend and see what beers I've been drinking. But if you're doing that, you already understand what Untapped is, right? You already know that it's an app for craft beer lovers to rate and remember the beers that they like. And so I rarely share information about what I'm drinking online. But when I do, it's few and far between. And at this point, Boulevard does this chocolate ale, which is really special every year for like a month. And I was having one of those. So I tagged them because I wanted them to see it because it's a brand I support. And I was actually writing a movie review of a film that was very bad, interestingly bad. And so drinking while I was writing it was actually helping me. It kind of loosened me up. And so that was me breaking the rule, right? There's always a way to break the rules. But the most important thing about all of this is that if you're going to do this online, that this should not replace your real life, okay? Go out and meet people, network, go to conferences, social events, you know. I have so many people that I follow online in Lawrence that I'll find out at different events and things like that, and we'll see each other. And it's always cool to like see what they said about, you know, oh, we all saw this band last night. Who is this band? You know, and what did so-and-so think? And being a part of that conversation in the community makes you an authority in the community because people recognize you. But it's really important to actually network and participate in person, because if we don't, then this could happen. And this is what we don't want, right? You don't want the guy who's just sitting at home watching TV and eating pizza and Cheetos, but he's saying that he's out rock and rolling and skateboarding all the time, right? So don't sit in front of your computer. Get out there in real life. Do stuff in person. Think about your brand, live your values, and reach your goals. And I said this before, if you examine your social media and it looks like you're not living up to those goals and those values and those interests that you previously set for yourself, recalibrate, right? It's okay. And I will update my bio every 6 months, and I'll look at what I'm doing, and I'm like, is this knowing where I want to go in my life? Am I headed there on my social media profiles or not? If a job change or a goal change occurs, it's okay to refine and revise your brand. But the most important thing that I can give you out of this entire presentation is to be your best self, right? You already know what to do and what not to do. Just remember, everyone's watching, and that's a great thing, because all of those people can help you along the way get to your goals and get to your dreams. And so if you bring your heart, your soul, your head, your passions, and your promise, great things will happen. Thank you. How am I doing?
That was amazing. Let's hear it again for Eric Melin. So what happens next is we have our next speaker. Let me step this way a little bit. If you guys need to take a little nature break, we're going to have to do like a little computer swap out here. If you need to grab more coffee or something, feel free. And let's just say maybe in like 5 minutes, we come back here for our next session with Monika McMahon. Come back. Return to the sound of my voice. All right, we're going to get started with part 2 of our keynote today. Before we do that, I kind of want to do a rundown of what the rest of the day looks like. So Monika is going to speak. We'll take a little break, and I'll come back up here and kind of direct people off to the breakout sessions. Then we return to this room after the breakout, and there's catering and refreshments. There's going to be a live band. Stella Luce is going to be here to perform. So don't go away after your breakout sessions. Come back here and hang out. So our next speaker I met online through Twitter because her brother is in a band, and it turns out that she's a great music fan and a huge local music supporter. She is also one of the smartest people I know in terms of social media, digital marketing. Sometimes, you know, as you get a little older, your mentors become younger than you, and Monika is one of my mentors. So you're going to learn a lot of amazing stuff today from Monika McMahon.
Thanks, Julie, and thanks to everyone for being here. Eric, I hadn't met him before, but actually a lot of what he said is resonating with what I'm going to be talking about today as well, so it sounds like we're all on the same page here. So today I'm going to go over some digital marketing strategies that you can use for your brand, and that's anything from personal to business to band. So just going through a little bit about myself, I've been in digital marketing for over 12 years now. Started off managing a multi-million-dollar e-commerce website. From that, I grew into social media marketing and influencer marketing for Fortune 500s. I've also done crowdfunding campaigns and worked with small businesses, local bands, kind of run the gamut. So I have a lot of experience, but the reason I'm here is because I really love local music, as Julie said. My brother's been in bands for years. I support as much music as I can handle, and so I just really want to give back to those that also are interested in kind of the same things that I am. So digital marketing, what is that really? It's really just the umbrella term for everything that happens online. This is anything from your website, your social media, email marketing, advertising. It all kind of is encompassed in digital marketing. And that's what brought you guys here today, is you kind of want to learn how to take whatever you're doing offline, bringing it online, and how you can maximize everything that you're doing. So these are kind of the basic pillars that I'm going to be covering today, just kind of going over how you can use each and every one of them. So before you can kind of really get into the strategy piece, which is coming a little bit later, you kind of have to make sure you have some of these other things set up, exactly what kind of Eric was talking about during his presentation. So starting with your brand, I know he kind of went over personal brands, but how many of you guys here actually have a brand for your small business or whatever you're promoting? That's great, about half of you, a little over half. So even if you don't have your brand guidelines figured out, you probably have them a little bit set up in your head. These are things that you already know and understand, and it's just you haven't necessarily put them down on paper yet. This is a very simple branding guideline that I've used for companies in the past. It's just, you know, logo, colors, fonts, etc. It can be as simple as that, and it also can go much deeper and include things like your mission, who your target audience is, and where you're in your language and tone of voice. But at a very basic level, this is kind of all you need to get started. And once you get it set down on paper, it can change. Everybody goes through and evolves, recalibrates, they come up with something different, a different direction. So even though you write it down, it doesn't mean that you're stuck with it forever. The reason it's so important is guidelines can kind of help you ensure that the decisions that you're making are reinforced by your mission statement and by everything that you've put down on paper. So this quote from Herb, you know, he's able to make decisions knowing that Southwest is a low-cost carrier. He's not going to add first class to their fleet. They're not going to add all of these perks and everything else that all the other airlines are doing, because he knows that people ride them because they are the low-cost carrier. Knowing that reinforces any decision he makes. So once you kind of get all of that set up, a website is necessary, as Eric was mentioning, kind of a hub just to keep track of all of your stuff. Now, who here doesn't have a website? Very few. They're pretty easy to set up these days, and one of the reasons I think they are so important is because each month there are over 1 billion searches happening on Google. This means people are out there and searching for information and searching for things. If you don't have your own website, people can't necessarily find it. Social media sites are great, and they kind of help reinforce some of the information that you have in your hub, but they change all the time, and it's not owned property, so it's not anything that you can necessarily always benefit. As he mentioned, these are some of the great sites that I've worked with in the past. I definitely recommend them. You don't need to necessarily spend a ton of time putting together a website, but just making sure you have the basics down. If you're a band, you know, where can people find your music? If you are a restaurant, list your hours, your location, and a menu. You don't need to have a million pages, and you don't need to go into a ton of depth on what you're doing. You just need to make sure people can find them. From your website, you know, this goes back to the Google searches. People are searching on Google and trying to find you. So search for yourself. Log out of your accounts, though, because that does affect what you see. You'll see stuff you've been to before. So search for yourself and what comes up. Is all of that information correct? If not, you should probably go through and try and change it on your website. Real quick, just looking at the anatomy of a search result in case people aren't aware. So the title in the blue up there is the title of the URL. And that is something that you can change and affect. The green URL is you know, the page that they're directing you to, and then the metadata below that is something that you guys can create. If you don't necessarily call it out on the back end of your website, Google will look for that information and find it and pull out the relevant information based on the search. You can see here that they've bolded some of the words music district in Fort Collins, because that is what I searched for. So it reinforces the fact that they're giving me information that I need. This will also come into play with social media here in a minute. I'll show you that in a second. The site links that are listed below that are something that you actually can't create and control at the moment. It is based on how well your back end of your website is put together, and can Google's robots index it and crawl it and properly find that in. But if your website is built well, they will pull it out like they've done here for music district. So going beyond kind of what comes up when you search for yourself, what else do you see when you search for your name or your brand online? It could be social media sites, or here for the Rio, kind of hard to see, I apologize. But for the Rio, when you search for them, you get their Yelp, their TripAdvisor, and their Open Table. This can also play into your digital media strategy, because you can use these to your advantage. You can go in and you can verify that you own this restaurant or business. You can go in and reply to people that ask questions, or at the bare minimum, you can go in and pull out great testimonials and use them in your marketing later. People love knowing what others are saying about your business, as it brings credibility to you, because other people have been there, and it kind of validates everything. So going beyond SEO and the search engines, this is what pops up when you share a URL on Facebook. So it uses the basic same information that Google does, but it also adds in an image. And this is Facebook's backend. They call it their Open Graph, or OG tags. So you can make this different from what pulls up on Google when people search for you, or it can be the same if you don't necessarily go in and add anything. Going back to kind of the website, once you have the website created, you need to do more with it than just have the basic info up there. You need to be tracking people that are coming to your site. You need to make sure you know who is visiting you, and create a baseline of data that you have on there. The people that have websites, who has Google Analytics? Leave your hand up if you also have Facebook Pixels installed. I would definitely recommend Facebook Pixels. It's also a free thing from Facebook. It does give them a little bit more information, but it gives you more information on the back. So real quick, Google Analytics, great way to track traffic that comes to your website. This is kind of the basic view you get to when you go there. But the other data that it gives you is you can kind of go in and look at the demographic information beyond just the ages of people, where they're living, but also going into their interests. So you can see based on, these don't really look, you can't really read these on here, so I apologize for that. I can share this with you guys later. But based on the website that I was pulling from, these people that are visiting this site are really interested in travel. They're interested in other food recipe sites. So it gives you more data so you can kind of back up what information you're putting out there and what people are interested in. When creating a campaign, those last 2 slides I showed you are just kind of stock basics from Google Analytics. But from when you create your own campaign, you can customize it a little bit by using UTM codes. So everything after the question mark that you see here doesn't affect the website that you're directed to, but it does give Google Analytics on the back end information on how to track this traffic. So it breaks it into a campaign and then can also show you the source that it comes from. So this just gives you some more information on the back end on where your people are. So getting into the Facebook pixels, the Facebook code is very similar to Google Analytics in that you just take a snippet of code, put it on your website, make sure it's on every page. From there, it tracks every single person that gets to your website, not just people that come from Facebook. You can also add in some of these additional event codes that are a little bit more specific for certain events. So if you have an e-commerce website, you can kind of track people down the funnel and see how many people give you their shipping information but don't necessarily check out, or the people that make it all the way through the funnel. The reason that this is becoming more and more common is that it allows you very easily to retarget users on Facebook. I know you've all been to those websites, you go to Facebook and you're like, how did they track? How did they know that I was looking at these shoes or this purse? It's because they have these retargeting pixels on there. So you can easily do this. And retargeting gets you great results because it costs less for you because the number of people that go to your website is a lot smaller, and it cuts down on the number of people clicking to find out what it is. Most of these people already know. They've been to your website. They have a great idea of what you're already about and what you're doing. So I highly recommend installing Facebook Pixels of the data that it gets you on the back end. So kind of moving on to getting into social media that Eric kind of covered. You know, after you've got your website up and branding figured out, it's time to move on there, because social media really is all about engaging with consumers and fans on a personal level. You get to connect with these people and they get to connect with you. You get to learn more about your favorite band or brand or local business, and they get to connect with you and get to know you. I've met so many people and businesses because of Twitter, because I'm out there and I compliment them and I tag when I'm there at their business, and it's just great that, like, at first it was a little weird when people would recognize you, but when you get to know them on a personal level, you know, they appreciate the feedback just as much as you kind of enjoy giving it to them on social. So as Eric said, you don't need to be on every network and you don't need to post every day, but you should come up with a content calendar of sorts so you can be consistent. Coming up with, even just twice a month, you want to post about X. Making sure you write that down and kind of schedule it is a lifesaver and keeps you consistent and reliable, which is key, because people will go to these sites and they want to know where you are, why aren't you talking anymore. If you go dark, they think you may have gone out of business or you're not around anymore. So being consistent is key. If you do try a new website or social site and you decide it's not for you because your audience isn't there, that's fine. You can leave, but just make sure people know where to. If you leave Facebook, you know, pin something to the top saying, you know, find us on Twitter for updates or sign up for our email. Just be sure you're giving everybody all of the information. The great thing about these social sites is they do track all of this data for you. So you can see exactly how many people like your page from within a certain demographic, age group. You can see some of their additional insights and interests. And all of this data is free to you because you are on their site. But this data about your consumers, combined with the information you get from Google Analytics, allows you to create your personas and allows you to know who you need to track when you're starting to create these digital marketing. Lastly, one of the great perks of social is the SEO factor. So if you don't come up when you search yourself or you search your band or your brand or somebody else has that same name, it's likely that the social media sites will also come up. Oftentimes they may outrank your own pages. This isn't necessarily a bad thing because you can control what people see there. You can make sure your bio's up to date, you can make sure there's a link to your website for more information. You get to control this as well. So if you don't necessarily come up and you don't want to hire an SEO expert come over and make sure you're ranking for certain keywords, this is another great way to ensure that you pop up when people search for. So email isn't necessarily a social media platform, but since it allows you to connect with people on kind of a more personal level, I kind of included it here. With the rise of social media, people have been saying for years that email is dead. I don't believe that, and stats are showing that email is still on the rise, open rates are continuing to go up, and it is still a great place for you to connect with consumers. This is an example I pulled from local band Post Paradise. You can see here they are working with MailChimp, and they've made it easy on their website to click a button and join their email list. And then this is an example of one of the last emails that they sent out, just letting people know about their show. You can even, MailChimp makes it super easy to have an iPad app that you can just hand to people at events. They can type in their information and you can collect it right there. On the back end, of course, they also give you all of their insights so you can track campaigns, but they also benchmark you against your industry. So you can get an idea of if you are a band, how do you compare to the rest of the music or entertainment industry? How many people are opening your stuff versus everybody else's? You can also take a look at exactly which specific people are opening your emails and how many times, which I always find a little bit fascinating. And MailChimp also offers some additional automation depending on the type of small business you have. They have automations based on e-commerce. So if somebody starts the process of creating a shopping cart but doesn't go all the way through, you can create an email that's sent to them saying, hey, don't forget you got this in the cart. Here's 10% off, or it'll be removed in a day or so. They have a bunch of different things. They just released this, so it's now open and available to everybody. And additional services have similar perks and automations available. But the last big perk of email collection is that Facebook allows you to create custom audiences based on email addresses. So if you're actively collecting email addresses from consumers or fans, you can use that data and upload it to Facebook. From there, you can retarget those specific users, or you can create a lookalike audience. So Facebook takes a look at all the people that you've said are your fans or consumers, and then they go out there and they combine all their interests, their demographics, location, and they find similar people. So you can easily find a broader audience without having to go in and tell them who you want to target. They do that all automatically for you, and they track. Another thing you can do with this customer file is if you are a band and you came out with a new video that you wanted to share with your fans first, you can target them and you can send your music video to them first. That way you get a lot of views, you get comments, and then you can kind of open it up and share it with everybody so it looks like it's already been a great success. These are a couple of email services and providers that are great to use. All of the screenshots I used previously are from MailChimp, which is what we often tell our clients to use, but any of them are great and they all do basically the same thing. So you've kind of got those basics down now. So we can kind of move into the strategy of kind of where you're trying to take your brand next. So these are pretty much the 6 basic items for creating a digital marketing strategy. And since this is a social media presentation, I had to include a photo of a cat. I think that's a prerequisite. So going kind of through these steps of creating your strategy, you always need to kind of keep in mind where in the marketing funnel you're trying to reach people. Are these people that have never heard of you before, so they're at the top with awareness? Are they kind of further down the funnel and they've maybe heard of you but not necessarily converted yet? Or are these your loyal fans and consumers that are trying to continue to give you their business? These are some of the goals that kind of align with where you are in that marketing funnel. So again, at the top, brand recognition, all the way down to selling tickets to a show or products online. This is a little bit about what to track when you create these types of goals. Obviously, brand recognition is a little bit harder to quantify, especially on a smaller level, but it's still really important. You can do things like track how many website visitors you've been getting. Is that above or below the baseline? You can track how many people like your pages, how many email leads you get, etc. The rest of these are a little bit easier to quantify, but I would recommend ensuring you're still tracking the periphery. So for example, if you are selling tickets to an event and you're getting people to your website, people aren't necessarily converting and buying, there could be other reasons for that. It could be, that they don't like the location, they're busy that day, there's a lot of different factors. But if you're seeing an increase of email leads, this could be because they're interested in what you're doing. It's just something about that date or a particular event they can't go to. So even though you're not necessarily selling as many tickets, I wouldn't call the campaign a failure because you're still able to collect emails and connect with these people. So when you're creating your audience, you've already figured out what your goal of this campaign is. So now you need to figure out where in that funnel they are and what type of an audience are you going after. If it is that broader audience, definitely use the social media metrics and Google Analytics to figure out who is already engaging with you and who would be most likely to kind of go through your goal funnel. If you are still kind of stuck and can't figure it out and aren't using something like Facebook lookalike audiences, look at your competitors. What are they doing? Who are they attracting? Who are they speaking to? Is that something that you should consider going after? And then, if you're going after specific fans and people that have already converted with you, that's a little bit easier because you can use their email addresses or retargeting. But now that you've figured out those first two steps, you've got your goal, your audience, the messaging becomes a lot easier. You already know who you're speaking to and where in the funnel they are, how much of an awareness or knowledge of you they have. So now you can really kind of dive deep into what type of messaging you're going to use. This one gets a little bit trickier, location, trying to figure out where to promote or which audiences are going to resonate with you better. And honestly, this is going to differ for everybody in the room. Some people might do really well on something like Reddit, while others are going to do better in their local newspaper. Facebook is a great and easy way to get started. Their backend makes it super easy to create ads. You can target specifically based on a lot of different metrics that I've shown you. And they give you a lot of data back, so you kind of get a really good idea of what's working, what's not. This is the one that everyone always asks about. How much should I be spending? And it really does vary, but even on Facebook, you can get started for as little as $5. That will give you, as long as you are focused and very narrow with your audience, so making sure that if you are a local business, you are targeting within, 5-10 miles of your address, which you can do on Facebook. You can type in your specific place and only target within that area. So then you're reaching people that are really, honed in and in that area. So definitely don't be afraid to just get started for a low dollar amount. If it starts taking off and it's doing well, add more money. It's easier to add money later than to take money away. Facebook won't give that back. As your campaign is running, Facebook does, they don't want you to fail. They want to give you as much as they can, because if your campaign is a failure, you won't come back. So they want to make sure that they are delivering you the audience that you want. So starting small and letting them get to know your audience and what's working and what doesn't works really well. Campaigns that run for a couple of hours or even just 24 don't see as great as results as if they run for just a little bit longer. So lastly, the biggest thing about creating your campaign strategy is measurement. Figure out what you're going to measure. I know I've been harping on this a little bit with all of the other analytics tools that are out there, but this is really key, because if you're not tracking how your campaign is progressing, then you're not going to be successful, because you're not going to know what's going on and you don't know, how your campaign is going. This isn't necessarily easy because you have to go to a lot of different places. This, on a daily basis, I'm looking at MailChimp, Facebook Ads Manager, Google Analytics, and probably 3 other places to try and evaluate what's working and what's not. So what do? I create massive spreadsheets, and this looks, very, very intimidating, and I promise it's not as complicated as it looks. So this was for a client that was running 5 different Facebook and Instagram campaigns. So I've split them up by goal. They're also running AdWords, and then I was tracking, sessions on their website, email leads, and purchases. But this is on a daily basis, so it looks a little bit, it's kind of hard to make sense of what's what. I also track everything on a weekly basis. That gives you a little bit idea more of what's trending and what's working week over week versus day over day. It doesn't have to be this complicated. This was obviously for a very specific person, but I highly recommend creating something where you can kind of track everything in one place. Just like you have your website to kind of get all of your stuff together, you need somewhere else where you can track. So what's next? You analyze and optimize. So after you've got a campaign or two done, you go and look at that data and figure out what worked. So how did your campaign compare to your baselines? Did you increase traffic to the website? Did you increase sales? What happened? Can you find any new patterns? If your campaign was successful, can you figure out what worked? If it wasn't, how would you change it so that it can be successful for your next? So there's a lot of different things you can do. I guess one story I was going to say is I have a client who we were trying to get sales on their website. And we were getting a lot of people to the website, but nobody was converting. And we saw that a lot of people were talking about that the service was too expensive for them on a monthly basis. So even though we sent a ton of people there, they weren't converting, we collected thousands of email addresses. Since we had those email addresses, we went back to them and said, all right, we changed the price. Here's the new price. What do you think of that? Sales skyrocketed. So because even though that campaign wasn't successful in the fact that we weren't getting sales, it ended up working out for us in that favor because we were able to find what the price limitation for this target market was and go back and not only continue with those sales, but get more sales online. We had a better understanding of what the market was able to afford. So kind of just going back, these are some of the services that I highly recommend if you don't already have a email service provider or a website up and running. And definitely those of you that don't have the Facebook pixel, look into it. I really think that it is beneficial for many people. So real quick, just kind of recap. These are kind of the path to creating your digital marketing strategy. So making sure you've got those basic pillars set up, coming up with your strategy and creating goals, tracking, measuring, and then finally optimizing and going back and doing it all again. So I know that this was a lot of information. That's my email address. Feel free to write it down and email me. I'm at Monika Run on Twitter. That is my maiden name. I couldn't get away from it. It's really hard to change things after you've had them for years. So I'm at Monika Run on Twitter. But please feel free to email me any specific questions you have. I know that I went over a lot and it was very kind of high level and everybody is different and has different specific things that they need. I also have templates of content calendars and that tracking document. So if you guys want those, I'm happy to share them with you. They're very easy to use. You just plug and play. But anyways, that kind of covers the digital marketing strategies. If anyone's in the session with me later, I'm happy to answer questions there. But thank you guys so much for being here and good luck on your digital marketing campaigns.
Okay, thanks, Monika. Next, what happens is there are several breakout sessions. And how many people feel like they signed up for something, but they don't remember what it was? Okay, that's all right. You don't have to expose yourself. If you come out here, I will help you find your breakout session. Soraya, I saw that. Okay, so what's going to happen in this room is collaboration and confidence. That's a workshop with Eric Melin. Then effective communication and relationships in a virtual world with Juliana and Annie is going to be in the Carriage House, and that's right across the parking lot. When I walk out of here, we'll kind of help you find some people to direct you to the Carriage House. Social media that doesn't suck. Kevin and Grant are going to present that in our media library. That's in this room. Content and telling your story. That's Monika. She has a breakout session in our dining room. And then creative techniques for tackling complex problems in your business. Kyle James Hauser is going to teach that in our blue rehearsal room, which is also in this building. So the only thing you leave this building for is the session in the Carriage House, which is the effective communication and relationships in a virtual world. Then, if you come back here after your breakout sessions, there will be merriment and live music, refreshments. So please do join us back in this room. Eric's going to do a little wrap up with us all, and then It'll just be networking and talking to people in real life, face to face. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to help you find where to go next. Thank you.
Killing in the name of. Killing in the name of. Now you do what they told you. Now you do what they told you. Now you do what they told you. And 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 now you do what they told you.